our guest tonight. Head decision maker and founder for Untapped Learning, a learning platform for movement and making decisions. Brandon Slade had trouble navigating Wittenberg, not because of Wittenberg, but because he didn't know what he wanted to do. Like many of us, as we transition from high school and our parents' house to now having to make our own decisions and living on our own, we are met with a series of decisions that we know, consciously or not, will impact the future of our lives. Football helped him as he had a team, friends, and a foundation from which to build. Smaller class size helped as he had access to his professors who helped him keep on track. But something just felt off and he couldn't put his finger on it. Brandon was already diagnosed with ADHD, but the world and he still were in the early stages of knowing how that affected learning. As he explored his options at Witt, no majors or studies felt right. Nothing felt like it landed with him. Then he started realizing he could help others as an educator, and more importantly, an early childhood special needs educator. That's when the world started to align. He could help others because he had been in their shoes. He is in their shoes.
All right. After Witt, moving out to Colorado, Brandon took the very traditional educator route. Louisville Middle School, or Louisville. I'm from Cincinnati, so you can go either way with that.
It's Louisville. But
it's Louisville? So I was completely off.
That's okay. Yeah.
Over the next decade of teaching, a thought started shaping in his mind. He kept thinking about what's missing. What do I need as an educator that I can't seem to find anywhere? What do I keep bringing to my students? This is where Untapped Learning started to form. An educational platform helping students access and further develop their executive function. But what does that mean? Well, we're going to find out. So what is the art and science of indecision? Where do we even start?
So many of us are faced with decisions every single day. Do I set my alarm to wake up tomorrow morning, or do I roll the dice on my body naturally waking me up on time? Salad or burger? Drive or walk? Ask a question or demand an answer? More importantly for us as students, which major do I choose? Which internship? Which job? Who should I date or marry? Should I even marry? As we start to think about all the decisions, big or small, in our lives we make every day, it can get overwhelming. And we can react as if a bear is attacking us and move into fight, flight, or freeze. Many of us, when faced with indecision, freeze. At least that's my natural inclination. Hud, what about yours?
Again, and we'll go a little deeper into defining terms. Anytime we're presented as human beings, like when we were first created or evolved, the brain was used to protect us. So I'm real, like I'll pull back, but I've learned over life, and you'll probably be able to drill down a little bit better, is to kind of take a deep breath. There's no imminent danger. I'm sure that's some of the things that went into you starting Untapped. But continue, Tim.
No, so that's maybe where we should just launch in.
Can we start out? Well, first of all, welcome.
All the way from Colorado.
Yeah.
That was quite the introduction. Yeah. I didn't know if I should jump in or not, but
you can. First of all, you can always jump in.
Yeah, HUD interrupts me all the time.
All the time. So yeah, any initial thoughts? When's the last time you've been back to Witt?
It's actually been 15 years before today, and I got to meet with all my a few former education professors today, and it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, talk about today. You were telling me about what you had the privilege of doing today.
Yeah, so actually a couple months ago, I was able to zoom in and train a lot of the professors and the student support staff on what executive function skills are. So when we struggle with like an ADHD or dyslexia, like what does that look like and what can we do as educators to help? So I was able to do that about a month ago, which was phenomenal. And then today, we got to meet with them in person, but I also got to see behind the scenes of my old academic records. And I had a younger brother who actually played football here as well, and his academic records. And They weren't pretty, to say the least. I have screenshots, but yeah, it's fun to see the path, and when you know what to do and you put in the hard work, and you have that 2 pats on the back and 1 kick in the tail, and the love and the accountability which Wittenberg gave to us, where it can take you.
Right. Could you just kind of break down what those terms mean? ADHD. When were you first diagnosed? How early were you diagnosed? When we were growing up, it was the whole kind of Ritalin generation. But can you just talk about that and how that affected you at what age?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I always tell people I have the best type of ADHD. So I was diagnosed with hyperactive ADHD at 5 years old. So I was like flipping desks and jumping on things, and I had like teams of people coming in trying to figure out what was wrong with this child, which was great because I got attention. I can't tell you how many 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds that we meet who they've known something has been off for a while, but they haven't been able to put their finger on it. Maybe it's an inattentive ADHD, or maybe it's high levels of anxiety or something like that. That was not me. I got a lot of love. I got a lot of support. I was a hot mess. Everyone knew I was a hot mess, and that was okay. So I was diagnosed at 5 years old.
Wow. It's early. Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, terminology was what does ADHD mean specifically?
Great question. So there's 3 types of ADHD. So there's inattentive, there's hyperactive, and then there's combined. So hyperactive, we think of the typical child, a lot of energy all over the place, bouncing off the walls. There's the inattentive piece, which is often the piece that goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
Where usually they're very bright and they can just kind of sit in class and do enough to get through where nobody's noticing, right? And they go unnoticed for a long time. That causes a lot of challenges down the road. So there's those 2 types, and then there's the combined type, where you're all over the place, but also you have a hard time paying attention. So those are the 3 types, and the core deficit is what's called your executive function skills. So your executive function skills just help you reach your goals. So just getting things done, and there's a lot tied into that. But when we talk about reaching your goal, let's say it's to get an academic scholarship or make honor roll. That includes time management. That includes getting started. That includes follow through. That includes knowing how to advocate. That includes knowing how you learn. Memory, retaining information. There's a lot that's tied up in there. But when we talk about ADHD, it's really just a deficit in you regulating yourself and you reaching your goals.
And that's where executive function comes in. Is that right?
Correct. And so the great news about executive function skills is that they can be learned. A lot of people think you're like born organized or disorganized. It's a long, challenging path, but these skills can be learned. And that's what we see over and over with students, because often they're very, very bright, and they just need some help with these skills. And once you give them the skills, they thrive.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, if you're all right with it, Hud.
Go right ahead, sir.
I'm going to rewind all the way to what attracted you to Witt? Why'd you choose Witt over every other place you could have been?
That's a great question. And I don't think my self-assessment was so poor at the time. I don't know if I could have given you a good answer, but I knew I needed to get away to grow up. I don't know if I could have grown up in Boulder, Colorado the way I needed to. And I needed to come out to somewhere where I knew I would have a lot of support, like small class sizes and support, but I also knew I needed to get away to really grow up. And I thought I was going to be okay, and I just didn't have the skills I needed to be successful. It is the biggest jump of your life, and we see this over and over as students we work with. Everything else is just stair-stepping up. Going from high school and all that structure to unstructure is where this type of student that we work with, who's very bright but has this unstructured brain at the time, they melt down.
Okay, a couple things. So you're out in Colorado. What, as Timmy said, how did Wittenberg come on your radar, from Springfield, Ohio? What were other schools you looked at? And I know you said you just wanted to get away, but you can get away to literally hundreds of different places.
Wyoming.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very fair. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So, Ohio, the heart of it all, but what led to that? Was it your parents? Was it a guidance counselor? What put Wittenberg on your radar?
Yeah, it was a mixture. So I did have a family member who came here, and there was a couple Division II, Division III schools out in the West Coast that I was looking at, and I came out here, and it's always hard to verbalize it. This is what we tell students all the time. It's, you think you're going to go somewhere, and then you step foot on campus, and it changes everything. When I stepped foot on here, it changed everything. And I got that question all the time. It's like, why are you going to Ohio? like, because I was looking at schools in California and Oregon and Washington, and it just felt like something I needed to do. This place felt very different.
But what about it felt like? Can you describe that?
Yeah, everyone was held to a high standard, whether it was athletics in the classroom, but there was that support there as well. So
you stepped foot on campus and you already felt like, oh, there's this level of support, there's this level of stuff. What you're describing right now was what you felt when you got on a campus.
even on my visit, I saw that, whether it was the football team practicing or, you know, when you shadow someone in the classroom, like sometimes it's hard to dig deep into that feeling, but you see the rigor and you see the standard, and the standard was the standard. It was a very high standard, and that wasn't compromised. And I knew deep down that I needed something like that, because if it was compromised, I was going to take advantage of it.
Do you remember who took you around when you came to visit?
Michael Janzik.
Yeah.
My next door was my next door neighbor.
Yep,
Good guy.
I stayed.
Great
stayed
football
with him.
player.
Very popular guy on campus. Yep. It was great.
You had the right person.
I had the right person.
Great. And so obviously you played football in high school. Do you think your condition led to you excelling? That was something you could really focus on, whereas maybe other parts of your life were, you know, kind of, it was a struggle. But how did football and coming here to play, let's go back to your freshman year. You said you come here, you're away from the comfort zone of home. So how did football and also the daily class schedule, how did that affect you? Because then it leads, like you said, you needed to figure it out. It still wasn't figured out. But how did that first year, you know, it's overwhelming to some people. You're playing football, you're going to class. Do you remember, like, how you felt?
Oh yeah, very much. So I struggled a lot with the transition, but two things that you said there are important. So first of all, I was not a very high-level athlete, but we do work with a lot of high-level athletes in our practice. And when you're looking at an ADHD or a dyslexia or another executive function deficit, you have lower than typical amounts of dopamine in your frontal lobe. Well,
wait, say that again. Say that again.
Yeah. So you have lower than typical amounts of dopamine in your frontal lobe.
Gotcha.
Now, what does that mean?
So when you exercise, we get flooded with natural good dopamine, right?
Right.
So we see a lot of these young men and women, they self-medicate through exercise early on, and that's why you see so many high-level athletes with this ADHD thing, right? Because we're always moving, we're always sitting still. It's a form of self-medication, but what happens is they get really good at sports. I know we work with a lot of high-level athletes, and these kids just don't sit still. And what happens over time is they get really good at sports. But something else that you touched on was one of the best things we can do during hard transitions or to improve these executive function skills is routines. Habits and routines are like the miracle drug, right? And so that structure of having athletics with academics and the accountability that tied in, I mean, that's the only way that I made through. I still really struggled my freshman year and my sophomore year. My grades were not good, but that accountability and that structure is the reason why it worked out.
But where did you find that? I mean, you said freshman and sophomore year, you were kind of struggling, you were trying to figure it out, all that. And then it sounds like, whether you're saying it or not, it sounds like something happened between sophomore and junior year that was like, okay, now I've got something. What did you find? Where did you find it?
So a couple things. I had a great professor. I actually met with her today, Dr. Brandon, in the education department. She taught me how to do college. She taught me how to do school. She taught me how to, I remember saying things like, you know, I have ADHD, I just can't get this in on time. And she'd be like, oh my gosh, you have ADHD, great, get it in on time, right? It was like so much love, so much accountability, but she taught me how to, you know, walk up to her, shoulders back, head high, look her in the eye, and clearly communicate with what I needed to do. So I had some great professors here who taught me how to do school, how to study, how my brain worked, things like the importance of office hours, and I can get into that in a second if needed.
Please.
And then I also, you know, when you struggle and you're close to home and you're in your comfort zone, I think I tried to blame like my mom and my dad, like when I was here. I was like, it's their fault I'm not doing well right now. It's like, no, like you have to look in the mirror. You know, they're 2,000 miles away. I'm like, I have to do the work to make sure that I am a student athlete and I'm a functional human being.
Right.
I have to put in the hard work, and that's what I had to do at Wittenberg. And I had the structure and the love and the discipline and the accountability here to do it, which I don't know if I would have gotten at a big school.
So it was a particular professor,
That was definitely a piece of it.
among others.
So some coaches as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and being outside your comfort zone was very important for me because I didn't have anybody else to blame. I had to do the work.
Most people would say, I want to stay close just in case. You said the opposite.
And I recommend the opposite a lot. It never goes well with families or kids or anything. I'm a believer in sometimes you have to go away to grow up a little bit.
Yeah. So with your diagnosis, a lot of people, and I'm speaking from not a very knowledgeable basis, but I'm just going off people I know, society, they would lean into that. And you're saying that this professor wouldn't let you use that as an excuse. So when you started your practice, is that one of like your core principles that you're teaching folks, that even though this stigma or, diagnosis is on you, but let's start here and not use it as a crutch or an excuse?
So ADHD is a tremendous gift in my life. Tremendous. The fact that I see things different and the fact that my brain works differently is an unbelievable asset. However, it ate me up for the first 25 years of my life. You have to discipline that gift. So it's kind of a mixture of what you said. It's like being okay, knowing that I see things different and I'm built a little different. But I still have to do my taxes. I still have to get things in on time. I still have to get up on time. I can't use it as a crutch. I'm going to have to put in a tremendous amount of hard work here and develop habits and structures and routines. And it's going to be hard. And I may need accommodations in some places, but to access that gift, I have to discipline that gift first.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So I got to pause for a second just to say Wittenberg has its connections curriculum, where some version of experiential learning has become so important to the Wittenberg experience that it's now become one of the things that need to happen before you graduate. Fire Week is a program that has been set up by Witt and the faculty to help make getting that done easier. FIRE, standing for Focused, Integrated, Reflective Experience, as it just so happens, no, we didn't do this on purpose, has an experience this year called The Business of Craft Beer, and the project director is none other than Ray Dudek. Go to wittenberg.edu/connections/Fire Week to sign up for this and other great Fire Week experiences. So I just needed to make a plug for Fire Week because it's coming up and it's a big deal.
It's such a nice weave-in, but also it's really important too because when we talk about getting that goal, like if you want to start a craft brewery, like that's those executive function skills. You have this goal. How do you reverse engineer that into daily actions? Transition between that and do what you need to hit that goal. That's where people with whether it's an ADHD, a dyslexia, if you're recovering from a concussion, so high levels of anxiety, that's where that part of the brain turns off. But all we're doing is reverse engineering that goal and helping people get there.
Okay, but how do you even decide what the goal is? So in the introduction and I know there are lots of people, including myself when I was here, the world is your oyster to a large degree, right? You almost can drown in a sea of opportunity. And yet you were very clear, I got to set the goal, I got to know what that goal is. But where do you even start to arrive at the decision of what that goal even could be? Because if you take this path, it sends you down this direction. And if you take this path, it sends you down this direction, or so we think.
It's such a hard, abstract question to ask. Like, I know if I was talking to a student, yeah, absolutely. If I was talking to a student in a room, we could get there by asking enough questions to see what lights them up.
Okay.
And to be honest, it's a harder question now to answer than it's ever been because the world is changing so rapidly.
Yep.
So here's an example. We work at a large athletic facility in Colorado with 5,000 student athletes. I have an ADHD practice above a hockey rink, and 80% of my day is spent with kids with mullets. That is when I was failing high school, the guidance counselor didn't list that as an option.
Mullets?
Well, maybe that, but they didn't list as, they said, if you don't get it together, you're not going to be a doctor, you're not going to be an engineer, you're not going to be this. They didn't list, you're going to have an ADHD practice above an ice rink, yada, yada, yada.
Got it.
So to try to answer your question, the most important thing moving forward is the ability to learn and the ability to learn, the ability to understand how you learn and retain information. The world's going to change very quickly, and being able to learn and understand your learning is essential. So I read at like a 3rd grade level. My attention is very poor. I always tried to sit down and read a book, and it just didn't work, right? But my retention's very high, and I was able to get through grad school and neuropsych and all this other stuff when I'm walking around, and I have a system where I stop every 10 minutes and I take notes. Just understanding that piece, it's not good or bad, it is what it is, right? Just understanding how you learn and how you acquire information is the ultimate skill now.
Yeah.
And so that would be my advice to a freshman who doesn't know what they want to do. We try to break out what feels as right as possible right now. Go down that path.
Right now. Right.
Right now. But
in the moment. Yep.
But understanding, learning to learn is the ultimate goal here. The world is going to look completely different in 5 years than it is now. If you know how you learn and you know how you retain information, you are going to do very well. And a lot of the students we work with have no idea.
Yeah, so you're bringing up the whole neuroscience perspective. I think I mentioned before, did you ever go down the medication route when first or years later, dealing with your situation? And like now when you're dealing with high-level collegiate athletes, what is the treatment, process now? When, you're doing more from a structured, neuroscience perspective, but what other options were out there for you? What didn't you like? Because obviously there's some things you didn't like that kind of led you to leave that part of teaching and go, you know what, I'm going to help people.
Yeah. I'll try to break that down. So first of all, with the medication thing, that's a very personal decision between the kid and the family. But what happens is, and so there's been some times in my life where I take the ADHD medication, sometimes where I don't. A couple years ago, we started this thing, and it accidentally just started taking off.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and my world got big fast. But one of the misconceptions with medication is medication's a tool. Like, let's say I'm functioning at like 80%, it can get me to 90%, right? But where we see the issue is that just because we take medication, a stimulant especially, we don't have organizational systems. We don't know how to talk to professors.
Yep.
We don't have systems in our life to be successful. Because this is all about, we do everything through the Navy SEAL discipline equals freedom mentality. What disciplines, what habits, what routines do we need to put in place to be successful? Building out a healthy lifestyle. We're seeing right now in clinical trials, 15 minutes of intense exercise is performing better than Adderall right now in clinical studies when you put a study session right after that. So the goal is to build out a healthy life. And then if you want to supplement that with medication, that's great. But medication's not this cure-all thing. I don't know why ADHD medication got that rap. Because if I said to someone yeah, you take this anxiety medication, take this antidepressant, and your relationship with your mother is going to be fixed.
Right.
You'd be like, what?
But that's most therapy, right? I mean, most people in therapy say, okay, well, once I get a drug, then all of my problems will be solved, but they never wind up going back and talking to the therapist again. You've got to have both. You can't just have one or the other. Just like you say, the drug to some degree is a tool that helps you down your path, but it doesn't have to be the only thing you have as an option. And it sounds like the stuff that you have created works better than any drug or otherwise, right?
Yeah, medication is just a tool
Right.
in the toolbox.
Yeah, so it's kind of like
it's
kind of like a person that wants to be a race car driver, and you put them in a NASCAR vehicle, and you say go, but they have no way of knowing how to shift.
Great
the gears,
analogy.
How angles work, but they're going fast. You know what I mean? So you
Real
gave
fast,
it, they're
real
going fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is. Thanks for sharing, by the way, because
Yeah.
one of the things that which is better in society is taking the stigma off of mental health, and whether people are on meds or not. But I think more people need to know that there's. I don't even want to use the word normal, but people can achieve high levels in their life with whatever condition, may fall upon them.
Well, we estimate in between 60 to 80% of our CEOs and entrepreneurs have this ADHD thing.
Yes.
We also see that a lot with dyslexia as well. Again, when you discipline the gift and you see the world differently, that's an unbelievable asset. But it takes a lot of work to get there. And no, I mean, I can give a lot of examples, but it's been.
But because they had to do the work to overcome what they had, the adversity they had in front of them in that moment in time and over their lifetime, they created the disciplines that then allowed them to be high performers, right? Whether on the field or in the boardroom, they had to create methodologies for themselves to be able to outperform, just to even survive.
Yes. And so the biggest piece of pushback, especially from high school and colleges, you're going to get is like, okay, if I implement this routine, all these routines, and we start with one at a time, but if I implement a routine, isn't that going to make my life boring? My life is not boring because I put my keys in the same spot every night. I'm not running around blaming everybody else because I lost my keys, right? Like my life is not boring. You get this pushback, especially from kids who are very creative, the future artists and musicians.
Yep.
Well, when you read the biographies of the most famous artists, like Picasso he was in his studio, no excuses, from noon to 8 p.m. every single day. He had very clear boundaries for that, and within those boundaries, creativity thrived. And that's really what we're after, is we're trying to open up as much mental clarity as possible through these disciplines and open up a ton of free time. So go back to office hours. For myself or someone else with ADHD or anxiety or whatever, that if I give up 30 minutes of my own time and go see a professor, that 30 minutes is going to save me an hour and a half to 2 hours on the back end by the time I start the task, figure out what to study, maintain attention, and follow through. 30 minutes saved me an hour and a half, 2 hours where I can enjoy campus.
Holy crap.
And that's kind of the methodology that has really landed with college kids, is what disciplines can we implement to open up as much freedom as possible versus viewing it as one more thing.
So everyone, we invited you back because you are a success. And everyone on campus here would look at you and say, holy cow, this guy made it. How can I too make it? Because when you're in this seat, in these 4 years that you're here on campus, you're thinking, what do I do? What's my next decision? Once I make this decision, now my life's spelled out for me. But you made a decision that is not the thing you're necessarily doing now. It's a part of what you're doing. Can you just walk me through kind of your path towards success and kind of just step me through chronologically or otherwise?
Thank you for saying that success thing, because it still feels like a hot mess. Right? I don't think most people want to see how the sausage is made on that one. So my mom helps run the foster care system in Boulder County, Colorado, and then I was teaching special education. So I taught 8th graders, and my core focuses were like ADHD and anxiety. And so about 6 years ago now, we went to Home Depot and we thought we'd get a fake piece of turf to throw the football with a few kids, because that's just how they learned. When I was at a coffee shop, we were just throwing the football while studying Spanish, right? We had no card that says sitting still, this kid's going to retain it better. And it just accidentally took off. Now we're
what do you mean by accidentally took off?
It was never, I never went into it saying like, this is going to be a thing. I just wanted to help a few kids.
Yeah, but what do you mean by took off? So you're throwing the football around, speaking Spanish to each other, and then all of a sudden, what were the indicators that you saw from them and yourself where, oh my gosh, this is now a thing?
Well, we knew the research was sound, because that's just something that, when I said I had to do the work, first of all, I had to get educated on how my brain was different, right?
Okay.
Now we have University of Colorado Neuroscience check our program and make sure everything is where it needs to be. But I had to get educated, so I knew what that was doing. But when I mean took off, we just wanted to work with a few kids because we knew these kids work differently. They weren't going to be sit and get kids. Like, they just learned through throwing the football, and they enjoyed it. And then when it took off, we started working with children's hospitals, and we, had a couple hundred kids, and then we started going to college campuses, and then Lululemon started calling, and then professional athletic teams. I'm working with like the Denver Broncos next month, which is a huge.
That's incredible.
Yeah, which is a huge thing.
Tell Russell I said what's up.
I'll try. Yeah. I don't know if he'll be there, but I'll try. But it was just one of those. I call it selfish entrepreneurship. I'm trying to build something.
What other version is there?
Yeah. it was, yeah, I just wanted something that I didn't have. I
Correct.
struggled for a long time, and a lot of family members as well, and a lot of friends as well. Some of the brightest people I've ever met didn't make it through.
So you created for yourself, sorry, you created for others what you wanted and needed for yourself,
Very much.
or would have loved
Very
had
much.
that been around as you were growing up.
Yeah, yeah. So just know that you're not broken. That. Can I give you a quick little?
Please,
go ahead.
Go.
So something that lands with me. So there's a lot of theories on how why ADHD is a thing. The one that lands with me the most is it's the hunter-farmer theory.
Okay.
So for many years, there were two types of people. There were hunters and there were farmers, right? So hunters go out and they're hyper-focused on one thing. They're locked in. Time doesn't matter. You're hyper-focused on this thing. You have the gift of distractibility. A branch breaks in the background. That's a really important piece of information. And then there's a light buzzing in the classroom, like, game over, I can't focus, right? So hunting lines up like 1-to-1 with this ADHD thing. And then farming, it lines up very well with the quote-unquote typical student who fits public schools. It's like you plant something, you walk a couple steps, plant something, you're patient with time, like you wait for it to grow, and then over time you have something. And hunters drive farmers nuts, and farmers drive hunters nuts, and everyone drives, but the world needs both, right? That's what really lands with me. And I was just trying to create a place for hunters. I do not want my accountant to be a hunter.
Right.
That's a
Right.
terrible idea,
That's
right? Like the world needs both.
So how many hunters do you have at this point? How many hunters have you cultivated, to mix the analogies or metaphors?
I think we're working with, I don't know, like 400 or 500 kids right now. But we do a lot of, workshops. We do a lot of work with like Carl Children's Hospital, and we just did all the CU engineering. We're doing, so we have about 500 intensely we're working with, and then there's a lot of like presentations and things where we're going just trying to help people. And
But that you also have kids that graduate and go to school and all that. So you're working with 400 or 500 now, plus Broncos, plus children's hospitals, plus whatever. I mean, that's an expansive network. That's pretty amazing.
well, thank you. And the goal is to get them in and out, right? The goal is to give them the skills, give them the systems, let them know they're not broken, and then have them do their thing. And then it's very common for them to come back and see us. Like let's say we work with them freshman year of high school, and they understand how to do high school, and then maybe it's freshman year of college. Maybe it's when they land that internship or try to start their first business. It's a lot of two pats on the back, one kick in the tail. It's like you're not broken. However, if we don't have certain routines and systems and build in accountability to your life and decrease this ego thing, we're going to be in trouble.
So you mentioned internships. I'm going to pause for a second simply
Go
to
right
say
there.
I always dreamed of the amazing internship in a city I was curious about, that might be in a field of study that I was curious about, or just something I thought I might be interested in, while also getting some credit at Wittenberg for doing so. Now, with Wittenberg's Connections curriculum and experiential learning being a thing that is a must-do before graduation, internships, study away, and engagement with the world off campus has never been more important. Have you ever wondered, where do I start to figure out your summer internship, or how to find a job on campus? Handshake is here to help. Access internships, work-study jobs, or career events on campus. Go to www.app.handshake.com, choose Wittenberg University, and get access to thousands of jobs and internships across the nation, in Springfield, and right here on campus.
That's incredible. Every time you do these reads,
So good.
I just
It's
imagine
so-
you
it's
at
so
home in front of the mirror doing your thing.
I do. I
rehearsing.
practice.
One day I'm going to help and I'm going to jump in, but I love you taking control.
I'm just picturing him not listening to a word, except he's just listening for like internship, just not
Yeah.
listening to a single word. But
Yeah.
it's like,
Sold.
bam, there it is.
So there's a couple things, then we'll go into a little bit of a lighter thing, because we like to throw it back to some of the things you may have done on campus. So the key things that you just said that I think every guest we've had has hit on is helping others, and if that falls in your passion and is helping others, that's incredible. I think that's what most people kind of aim for, and that's kind of the struggle that most folks had to go through before they found what was the thing
Absolutely.
that I'm passionate about. But it all goes back to wanting to help others, because all the other stuff will come back to you. Like we were talking about, selfish entrepreneur. But that's great if you can. So I'm reading a book called The 5 a.m. Principle, Robin Sharma. I don't know if you've ever, great book. But I'm just summing up. It's about a billionaire who teaches like a couple people who are kind of struggling with where they're at with the routine of rising early and then all these different methods. So I just want to say that's incredible. But we always like to ask the question, when you were here, what were your favorite hangouts, if you did hang out? Meaning if you socially went out anywhere.
Most definitely.
What was your rotation?
Rotation, football house party to station, when McMurray's was a thing.
Okay.
Probably there.
Did you like Station better or McMurray's?
He just said McMurray's. Don't pressure him into.
No, he said Station.
That's a hard question. I don't know. Probably McMurray's when I was like younger.
Oh, see, yeah, there it is.
That was judgy. Because did you hear his?
Yeah, there's a lot of judgment in that one.
Yeah.
You're not even going to tell him why?
We'll talk offline about that. I owned Station for 2000, 2005.
I said station though.
You did. You said Station first.
Station first.
Yeah, there you 100%. Go. All right, that's good. Anything else? Like when you were hanging out here, was that like an escape for you? Hanging out with the football guys. How important was your leisure time to kind of take pressure off of yourself? Away from studying, away from athletics. The bonds you made.
I mean, so important, right? Like that. That's what keeps you coming back. And that's that network. One of the really cool things for me versus if I would have stayed in state, and I look at this all the time with kids we work with, is the kids who go to college right up the road. I have a really cool network across the country now, solely based to my time here. And the bonds I built and the people who have launched in different areas, which I don't think I would have had. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
So because you came to Springfield, Ohio, you have a national network of people you know and are friends with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because this school launches a lot of people. Like I was just at Drexel in Philadelphia. And I just looked at my thing. Who do I know in Philadelphia? Of course, there's like 4 or 5 Wittenberg people that I played football with there. Like, okay, let's hit them up, right? And so, yeah, no, it's a very common thing. And that's what I love about a small school, too, is you leave campus and you know almost every person in your graduating class.
Yeah. That's great.
So you're an educator. You're on the educational path. You're teaching the students you care about. Why jump ship from that to do Untapped?
So
right, I mean, you got a pension. Like, what the heck?
Well, and I got this question so intensely, and sometimes I'll do like work with like a entrepreneurship type program at like a university.
Sweet.
And they're always talking about Bitcoin or AI or whatever, and it's here's my answer to that. You should not start a business unless you can't not do it.
That's wow.
I can't not do this thing. It is way hard. Like, it's so hard. And, I'm a father. I have, I love my time with my daughter. And, I just can't not do it.
Why? Why can't you not do it? Describe it. I get this question because, good,
because I taught for like 14 years before
right.
I started this thing, right? Like I was almost halfway to retirement. There's just this fire in your belly where it's just like you feel like you were put here to do something, and you just once you do it, you can't not. And I'm actually, I think, different than a lot of teachers. I loved teaching. I didn't leave teaching because I didn't like it. I just left it because I stumbled into this thing that I just felt like I was put here to help with, to play a role in helping with. We have about 35 mentors now, about 40-ish employees who they do the hard work now. So I can fly out here and do stuff like this, right? But so I'm just a small piece of what we do. But I don't know. I just can't not. There's just this fire in your belly, and it's hard to like explain it. But I know I can't go back.
Yeah.
unless I need to.
You won't. You can't go back. I mean, now you're outside of the system. Like, you get back into that system, it just won't feel right.
Yeah, and a lot of my friends are teachers. I adore teachers. I love teaching. Like I said, like I'm still love the education department. Like, it's such an important job, and I loved my time doing it. I just feel like this is what I was put here to do. And going back to your original question about trying to figure this out,
Yeah.
I figured that out at like 35. You just keep putting yourself out there, and eventually something's like, yep, there it is. Like, you can't think your way through this.
So it's almost like exploration. It's kind of trial and error. It's kind of try this thing and dabble in that thing and try this other thing. As long as it's of interest to you, then you got to go try it and try all these different things. And then it's almost like the amalgamation, the conglomeration of all these little trials then leads you to this thing that you just feel compelled you have to do.
Yeah, and you're skill stacking along the way. Like, I'm not a great athlete, but I'm in probably the top 25% in my day. And then I was in the top 25% of education teachers. And I was in the top 25% of hyperactive people, right? And you stack these things on, and then you have a career that you're the only one who's doing it because you're grouping things together that you're pretty good at. But when you take them all, like, you're like the one of that thing.
So beyond being BFFs with Russell and Broncos, what is the future for Untapped? Where are you headed?
Yeah, I'd love to do more what we call tier 1 interventions, and that is helping more big picture. And one of the things I'm passionate about, so I'm a part of something called the Carl Counselors Grant, where I go and train all the low achieving schools in Colorado on like ADHD and these executive function skills. And so doing a lot of that work where you can impact a lot of kids through that is really exciting to me. And I mean, as long as I feel helpful,
Yeah.
I don't think I need much more.
There's we kind of missed this. How much are you addressing social media in your practice, right? Because that's a huge thing, because everyone sees life every day looking incredible, and so how do you balance, and are you encouraging the folks that you're counseling to, limit their social media? Because that directly, affects dopamine levels. Like, people wake up
Very
and
much,
they're
yep.
touching the phone,
Very much.
they're on, the gram and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just curious, how are you dealing with that?
It sounds like you're educated in this as well. So step one is to have a ton of empathy with yourself. You have a billion dollar industry working against you to distract you on that thing. So if you're distracted and you go down the hole, you got to have empathy with yourself, because we all do it. Step two comes back to that discipline equals freedom mentality. There's a study that just came out of Cal Irvine a few years ago. They got people into peak attention, like focusing as hard as they could and really locked it into that flow state. And then they had the phone go off. And they're measuring brainwaves. It took an average of 26 minutes to get back into peak attention once the phone went off. Well, guess what? I don't know about you guys, but I usually check my phone more than every 26 minutes. So I guess my message is...
Holy crap.
Yeah, no, it's
You're bad about that.
Yeah, you're terrible.
Yeah.
No, but...
Don't judge me.
All right.
But I think more the message for me is you can do social media till your eyes bleed after you take care of business on what that is to do. It comes back to that discipline equals freedom thing. I don't have any regrets, but when you ask me about my social life, one of the things that I'm passionate about getting for kids is there were so many nights when I went out on this campus where I had that nagging voice in the back of my head, like, you're failing out of college, that paper's not done, that paper. And like, I don't know if I was fully present a lot of times that I wanted to be. And that's a lot of my goals for kids too, is to be there. And so that's more the message on social media, is like, it's not good or bad. It is what it is. You're going to do it, but let's get you through your stuff first so you can do it without the guilt and the shame behind it.
Yeah.
So you just said I wasn't fully present. Where were you not fully present?
When I was going out, like at, of course, station, of course.
Obviously.
Obviously. But when I was going out, there's that voice.
When you were with your friends,
Mhm.
there was that voice that was happening. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, because I didn't take care of business, and I didn't do what I needed to do, and I was behind on homework, and all these failing grades were coming in, and you have that voice in the back of your head when you don't take care of business. And that's one of these things where, I would love to help students get organized, take care of business so they can go out and just be there.
With their friends,
without
with their
that anxious voice in the back of their head.
That's
just,
awesome.
Just be there. And
Sweet.
so that's kind of the message on social media.
That's great.
And that's where office hours, another thing, that's another plug for office hours. It's like, get in there, take care of business, study what you need to study, be efficient with it, and then do what you want.
What, do you guys, is there a metric of what you consider a success with the students that you're helping out? What is success to you and to your organization?
And then we're going to open it up to questions from the audience.
We're up on time. Yep.
Yeah, so that's obviously a very hard question because there's so many different things. But
for you, I mean, what does success look like?
Helping them reach their goals.
Okay.
Whatever that goal is, that goal may be to have a good bedtime routine. That goal may be to get a 2.0 GPA. That goal may be to make, be the quarterback. Getting them to their goals, or at least giving them the opportunity, is success.
Gotcha.
All right, so now what we like to do, leave a couple of minutes at the end to open it up to the audience in case there's any questions from the audience if you want to ask. Yes?
Question. So you talked about the nagging voice because there might be things you haven't done in college or classes, things like that. So what advice would you have for a student where maybe they're hearing that voice or maybe it's weeks down the road of things piling up? What advice would you have to help that student maybe reframe or start to address that?
Yeah.
So just repeat the question back so the audience can hear.
So the question was, is you're out with friends, you hear that nagging voice, that anxious voice, like you're behind, like this is going to all come crashing down, like what do you do? So just a quick side note, there's an 80% correlation between ADHD and significant anxiety because that voice is there, right? And it's constant.
Wow.
And so the answer to that is, what structure or what routine can you implement to start? Because one of the things we beat ourselves up on is procrastination. And
I'm one.
Yep.
And there's different schools of thought. Some people argue procrastination is a behavioral state. Other people argue it's an emotional state, right? Like we feel anxious, we feel overwhelmed, and there's something there that's blocking this. I don't want to deal with any of those states. I just implement structures in my life and people that, I think having a mentor is the ultimate life hack. And so I still ask like people I look up to be my mentor all the time and have that accountability to them, whatever that looks like with that relationship. But in college, it's what structure, going to office hours or study table or student services or whatever, what structure can you implement to take that pressure off of you? Because starting something is very hard. So let's implement structures and not do that willpower thing.
So you mentioned mentorship. I think it's super important because many people don't get mentors because it's scary, it's intimidating to think about asking a mentor. Can you take us through the process of how you find a mentor?
Yeah.
And then ask them to be your mentor.
Great question. So going back to that social media thing, there's this dangerous misconception out there that everyone's doing this on their own to what they see on social media. And the most successful people have the most help. Whoever they look up to on social media has a team of people behind them doing a lot of stuff.
Yep.
We got a team of people behind us here.
Yeah, they're doing something. But I don't have a good answer. It feels funny at first, because that rejection thing is there too, right? Because it's very common. They're like, no, I'm too busy.
All right. How did you find one of your mentors?
One happened accidentally, an older student on the football team. Actually, this is a good story for you.
Good.
I was like about to bomb out of college, and someone on the football team said, why don't you just go talk to your professor? And my answer was, you can do that? No concept of how to do college at all. And that's what kind of started that path. But now it's just, if there's someone that I look up to or something about them that I look up to, like, man, that person is really good at X, I just ask them if I can buy them a coffee or if I can take them out or, talk about why I'm asking them, how I really respect them and look up to them. And usually that plays pretty well. It's like, I really respect how you do X. Would you go to coffee? And
oftentimes when you take that approach and you talk to a person or you ask a person that feels like they're out of your league or won't have time for you or whatever, do you usually get rejected?
More often than not, they say yes.
Right.
Because most people just want to help.
Yep.
Most people just want to
It's the
help.
craziest thing.
And if someone asked me, like of course I would say yes. I may not have a ton of time on that day or that time, but I'll give them everything that I have in that moment.
Yep.
Awesome. Back to the audience. Sorry. Any other questions? Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, another one. Okay, so you talked about anxiety, and if we're talking about the art of indecision or anxiety, thoughts on students in college trying to, navigate the pressure of picking a major, picking a career, their first, second year, wrestling through maybe the anxiety of that, and advice on thoughts on how to explore that here a little bit.
Yeah. So the question was, all the anxiety that comes up when you're trying to, it feels like you're trying to lay out your whole life with picking a major
Yes.
and picking a career, which is just going to dictate all this stuff. And it sounds ridiculous, but this is the thought process of most of us. And it was my thought process as well. It's like, whatever I choose is going to be what I do the rest of my
Rest of your
life.
life. Yeah.
And, the days of working for Ford out of college and getting a gold watch after 30 years are gone, right? What are you most interested in at this time? What skill do you want to develop? And for me, it's like, are you learning how to learn? And if you do that, we will do great things.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This is just
Go.
my
Just-
humble opinion. I know we've done a few of these, but this one I think hits home the most for a lot of people who are just dealing with the everyday, just trying to figure it out, keep it going. How do you handle the stress and anxiety? Because, our previous shows has been like, okay, how'd you get to this point? But you're saying this is how you do it every day to even position yourself to get to wherever you're every day.
Just to get in the car in the morning, right? To
which
go to
I think more and more people in this world, like, they need more of you. Like, they
Totally
No,
agree.
I'm being
No.
100% serious, because the world is full of distractions, fear, and what you're saying is that you're helping. I'm just saying you're helping a lot of people, and that's incredible.
Well, thank you. And I'll give you another Wittenberg example. So my younger brother, who's 8 years younger than me, very good athlete, still reads at like a first or second grade level, like severe dyslexia. So he was at Wittenberg for 4 years and then just had to finish like a couple classes back in Colorado. But he can't read a lick. He's systematized his life so well because he figured out how he learned here, right? You should see how he answers emails. He has it read aloud to him. He says it back to the little thing. And there's like this is not like hard stuff now. He says it back, runs it through Grammarly, and he's answering email faster than me. He's working with Ivy League level students right now. Like, he's crushing it. But he learned the systems that work for him. And this is the hard thing, and this is where a school like Wittenberg was so helpful, is you just have to figure out how you learn, because how you're going to acquire information is going to be very different than how I am. And it's not good or bad that he's not reading his email that's being read aloud to him. It is what it is. It's just how he's doing it.
he's using the tool.
He's accessing the gift of dyslexia, and the gift is
Yeah.
he can zoom out and he can see systems at a high level, but it just ate him up. I mean, he was here for like 6 or 7 years, and I got his academic records today. They're hilarious. But he's crushing it right now, but he had to figure out how he learned.
Yeah.
And then play to that without the ego of like, this is a good way to learn or a bad way to learn.
The last note I want to do, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Okay. Yeah. Do you want me to?
Sorry,
do you want
go
me to-
for it.
Oh, I have a question. You mentioned the importance of physical activity. You said something about 15 minutes of vigorous physical activity. And you also mentioned that you're working with elite athletes, but I would imagine that not all of the students you're working with are athletes. And how do you encourage them to exercise or find exercise that works for them? And maybe if you could elaborate a little bit on how the exercise actually helps them.
Yeah, great question. Loaded question. I'll try to get through it quickly. So the question was, not everybody's an elite athlete. How can we use exercise as a tool for learning? And I guess kind of what helps. So I want to touch on a few things after I touch on that because what you said is super important. But with the exercise piece, a lot of people ask me like what routines, what exercise routine. The research shows us, and this is from the book Spark by Dr. John Rady, getting your heart rate up 75% of resting rate for 15 minutes increases attention, learning, memory, and retention. Just take a walk. Just do it. The goal is just to get your heart rate up. It doesn't matter how you do it. We don't want to make it too fancy.
So I don't have to do 1 billion push-ups. I just literally need to go for a walk.
The goal is, and again, like no one expects you to wear a heart monitor or anything like that. Just building out a lifestyle that integrates that movement. Movement is the miracle learning tool that really nobody's talking about. A quick note on what you said that's also super important is that when someone gets diagnosed and someone comes to campus, they want to go run right to disability services or whatever that is and get all these accommodations. Well, accommodations are kind of the top of the pyramid. They can be incredibly helpful, but only when you start on the bottom of the pyramid. So right now in neuroscience, we can't tell if someone has ADHD or they're just sleep deprived because they present the same way. If someone's sleep deprived, like you have trouble paying attention, like we've all driven to the airport where you're like half awake. I did it like 12 hours ago. Yeah. We look at sleep, we look at structure, we look at exercise, we look at routines. We start at the bottom of the pyramid, and then we work ourselves up. But if you're not taking care of that core, you could give me all the extra time in the world, it wouldn't have mattered. So thank you for bringing that up. Start bottom up on that.
How important is I think one of the points you exercise. How important is that for folks who are just in general? You said getting the heart rate up, but are we better when we're in shape?
To be honest, it's not even about being in shape. It's just about what happens to the brain. It's getting flooded with norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin. It's been getting flooded with all the stuff that not only decreases anxiety but increases learning. Humans are just meant to move. At the end of the day,
movement.
Just movement in some capacity. And then the same thing with sleep, and the same thing with structure, and the same thing with routines. You'd start with those, and you will be okay to start. And then we can work ourselves up to organizational strategies and accommodations and things like that. But you have to start there, or nothing else is going to work.
But I can't count scrolling on my phone as no.
That's
and that's this guy.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have
20-year-old self.
20-year-old self. Process over product. Focus on the process, not the product. Things will come if you focus on the process.
So don't worry about the outcome. Worry about the process, and the outcome will come. You said product. I'm just using a different word. Same result.
Absolutely. And I don't think I'm to my product yet. I don't think I'm anywhere close to it. But
we never are.
I don't think even close. Not even in the realm. But just focusing on that process, it brings down anxiety, and there's a lot you can't learn when you're in an anxious state. And I can't control the outcome, so I'm going to do what I can in the process.
Great way to end. Thanks for joining us
Thank
tonight.
you guys
That was
so
great.
much.
Incredible.
Woo. Thanks for having me, man. It's good. Helpful.